Bravescast, the home of the Braves.
Play ball!
Welcome back to episode 2 of the best podcast ever to hit MLR, the Bravescast. I am Penny Lane, also known as Kurt Anger, and joining me this week is the Triple H to my Stone Cold Steve Austin, Brian Taylor.
Brian Taylor coming at you for episode 2 of the Bravecast, not Bravescast. Thank you.
You're incorrect. It is the Bravescast. It's always been the Bravescast. Also joining me this week...
I pitched it as the Bravecast. Trust me.
Well, I'm correct. Bravescast sounds better. Anyway, also joining me this week is my good friend, GM of the St. Louis Cardinals, Fats Richards. Fats, say hi.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Fats, why don't you go ahead and give yourself an introduction so our listeners know who you are, what you are?
Yeah, so my player name is Fats Richard. I'm the GM of the St. Louis Cardinals, so chirp chirp to all those who are getting the role, the hype role thing. I don't know what you call it, but yeah, chirp chirp all the way. Got drafted in season 7, so what are we on now? 11, right?
Yeah.
It's been around a while now, I guess. Can I say that? I know there's a lot of old heads that are probably going to listen and be like, yeah, that guy's still pretty new. DD is probably saying, yeah, I just drafted him last season. And then, I took over the Cardinals. I think it was late season 8, if not. Yeah, it was late season 8. Like last 4 games of the year. And then I've run them ever since. I don't know if you can say run them well or not, but here we are.
Well, you made the playoffs last year. That's something.
That's a plus. Yeah, that was fun.
You got a bye, which is something I haven't done in like 6-7 years of GMing now.
Yeah, but we didn't win.
It's because you played us, and we're really good.
I want to win!
All right, I suppose we should probably jump right into this. Brian, you want to go ahead and give a recap for last session? Actually, you know what? I don't even know if we need to do that. Let's not talk about it. No, go ahead, Brian.
It was a good game. It was unfortunate how it ended, but it was overall a pretty good showing for the new look Atlanta Braves. A 5-6 loss to reigning division champion Milwaukee Brewers at Milwaukee with their wacky ballpark. That's always just so fun to play in. Key performers for the Braves, the great Bambi came out of the offseason swinging well, 3 for 3 with 2 RBIs on the day. Io Torrent in his Braves debut went 1 for 3, but came out of it with a 2-run triple. On the mound, Kenny Kawaguchi in his switch to pitcher started for us. Went 3 2/3, 4 hits, 4 walks, 4 earned runs, 6 strikeouts. Not the most ideal start, but still definitely some how do I put it?
Upside?
Upside, yeah. We saw some good things out there. Definitely a lot to look forward to for Kenny. And then some guy that I don't really like, to be honest. Penny Lane came up, I guess. He did fine. He gave up 2 runs.
No comments.
The best member of this podcast, Lars Newbar Jr., came in and got the last 2 outs.
Yeah. I may have an 18 ERA in MLR right now, but I did record 3 straight outs in the MLR MLN game, so says something about those MLN players.
We don't talk about the MLR MLN game. Unless you're talking about my clutch walk to load the bases with 2 outs in the 6th.
How did
then we can talk about
Brian?
it. We don't got to talk about that. Mm-hmm. I just said we don't have to talk about it.
Well, I think we should. It's more fun for me than talking about what happened last game.
I think we've sufficiently ended the recap portion of the podcast.
You're right. So anyway, let's get on to what everyone's really here for, which is the discussion of the back rooms of MLR. I'm still bringing up back rooms. I'm going to organically segue that in sometime. I promise. Fats, I'd say you're pretty good at drafting. You had the first overall pick 2 years in a row, not saying anything about the quality of your team. So I figured this week we'd talk about, well, of course, the draft.
Yeah, absolutely. Get
Mhm.
into it.
And as always, I'll answer these questions first so you two can have some time to think about them. And let me start by asking, what's the pick you're most proud of making? For me, I think it's obvious if you know anything about me. It's Kenny Powers, because he's the pick that basically saved me. I was a terrible GM before he came in, and then he figured it out. I went from 20 autos one season to 0 the next with Kenny as my co-GM, because he actually knows how to run a team unlike me. Whew. Who wants to go next?
Go ahead, Brian.
Well, it's a really complicated question because I've only had one draft as an MLR GM. Though I have had many other drafts that I have been involved in as like members of front offices, like as a captain in the league, as well as in MLN. So I'm gonna go ahead and take the cop out answer and say my best pick was back in season 7 when I was a captain with the Mets. And with pick 36, we took some guy, you may or may not know him. He's a bit of an underground name, Robbie Tight Pants. I think that was a pretty solid pick at 36,
Yeah, he's the
especially
guy
because
that
Fast
was the
Pitcher was on the
Yankees
board.
GM, right?
No, different Tight Pants.
Oh, okay. I'm sure. They're
There's a lot
pretty
of
much the
tight
same
pants
person.
around here.
Probably brothers.
Ah,
I'm gonna cheat if I can here and
You
say the
can.
best pick I made was one that I didn't make actually, and turned it into a trade because we ended up getting exactly who we wanted after that trade, anyways. And of course, I'm referring to the our second first overall pick. Our first one that we picked Damian with. Our second, we were going to pick DVD the entire time. Cue the dun dun dun. Everyone didn't see that one coming. Um, but yeah, so we got to pick DVD and ATR with that one. We do have an affinity for 3-letter nicknames: DVD, ATR, GG3. Um, but yeah, that's probably the one I'm most proud of because it worked out for everybody, I think, involved in that trade and all the players that got picked.
I think it probably was a good move for both teams. Moving on to our next question, and it's the
Actually,
exact
before you
opposite
move
way.
on, I
Oh,
do have
okay.
a
Yeah.
second answer I want to make because I
Go
think it's funny.
go right ahead,
It's,
completely
it's
just burying the format of the podcast here, Brian, but go ahead, do your thing.
Yeah. Well, it'll pay off. Trust me. Believe
I'm
me.
love No, don't worry. I love it already.
Season 8, I'm with the Dodgers. We're trying to figure out the drafts. We're like a couple picks in. We make it to round 3, pick 69, and of course we
Nice.
pick soon to be NL Cy Young winner, Dildo.
Hey, that's my boy, by the way. Dildo from the Tennessee Volunteers. I wanna say this. He can be controversial. I understand that. But shout out Dill because I was hyping you up all throughout college. I knew you were going to be a good contributor to the league. You can say good is, like just depends on your perspective, I reckon. But he does contribute to the league, and I think because he won a Cy Young, shout out Dildo, Tennessee Volunteers legend. Just putting that out there.
Thank you for your answers, both of you. And like I said, this is going to go in the complete opposite direction, and you really don't have to answer if you don't want to, but who's the player you were most upset to miss out on? And I have an answer that's weird because I just said my favorite pick was Kenny Powers, but the player that I really wanted that year was a player named Steve Rogers. I really liked his vibes. He seemed like he'd really help the clubhouse because we still needed some activity. He was drafted way before I could pick him, so that sucked for me, but ultimately it was very good because he flamed out incredibly hard. I read the vibes wrong. He was a jerk. Ultimately, just very happy I didn't get what I wanted that year. Who wants to go next?
Well,
They're both dead. Okay, let's go.
No, I guess I can go next.
yeah.
I guess I'll talk more about the season 8 draft. Not only was I a member of the Dodgers draft crew during that draft, I was also live on that draft stream. So
When weren't you, though? You were a draft stream for like 5 years in a row.
no, I was in a couple years in between that I would take off,
Oh,
but
okay.
for the more drafts than not, between me getting drafted and now I've been on the stream. But we're trying to work through the draft. We're decided we're gonna take a picture with our first rounder. We come down to it, and then 4 picks right before us, the Yankees take Pete Morris, who
Mm.
has been a great contributor to MLR as a whole. And so, live on stream, I make the mistake of saying out loud that someone took our first option and now we need to pivot.
Yeah, you never say that.
Yes,
But
I know. I still am quite embarrassed about that. And
yeah,
so, 4 picks later, we end up taking Palfo Salvi, who was and still is or no, I think he retired, was a incredible piece of our bullpen down the stretch to then end up winning us Paper Cup. So, wasn't the worst pick, but it hurt to lose Pete Morris, and it just kind of sucked because it was live on air, people hearing my reaction to that news.
yeah, it's hard to control your emotions when you're in the draft stream because you're like, no, fuck. But you can't say that because then whoever you actually draft feels bad.
Right.
Mm.
Shout out Palfo.
Yeah, I can't say that I feel like we've missed anyone. I do think that like when we picked Dayman, it was between Dayman and Stupido. And I knew Stupido was a Cardinals fan also in real life. So I did want to pick them too. It was just a really hard decision. And you can only make that once. And at that point, we just needed someone to help and be chatty in the clubhouse and somebody I can have help me with like captain's stuff, like just checking timers and whatnot. And then the year that we made the trade, I did really like Coleslaw. And I think he went to Miami, if I'm remembering right.
Yeah, that sounds right.
That is correct.
Yeah, I did really like Coleslaw too, but we needed 2 pitchers in that draft, which is why we took DVD and ATR. So that just wasn't an option for us.
All right. Well, thank you both for your answers, but let's get the softball questions over with. Let's get into some real hard hitting stuff. What is the most important thing you look for in a prospect? I'll go first. I think the most important thing for me is vibes. I like to look up the message count of a bunch of prospects, sort it by there, and then interview a bunch of them so I just can get a feel for what their personalities are like one-on-one. Because if you mesh well with me, you'd ultimately probably mesh well with the team because that's kind of how I build a team of people I like. Brian, I've never said this to you before, but I do actually like you.
Wow, that's news to me.
Yes. So generally, I think if you build a team that gets along well with each other, you're going to build a successful team. So that's what I look for. What about you two?
So I'm going to turn this around. So
Okay.
do you see your team and your crew of people as an extension of yourself in this instance? So like you're all pretty like-minded or
Oh,
similar
absolutely
in a
not.
way? No?
No,
Okay.
These people are not very like-minded with me at all. I hate people that are like me. These people get along with me. I don't want people that are like me. I like people that I like.
Okay, fair enough.
Mhm.
I'll let Brian. Yeah,
Yeah,
since you
for
guys are
me,
teammates.
honestly, like, oh, yeah, sorry.
Since you guys are teammates, I just want to hear how you both see it.
I mean, I can't say I see it too dissimilarly from Kurt, though we take different approaches. Kurt definitely leans in a lot more into like draft interviews. Like he'll interview like 15, 20 people in a draft class, and that'll be a tame year for draft interviews. And then me, I just sort of I go with a lot more of a fine tooth comb through like all the drafty chats, and I'll see how they interact and like when do they pop in, when do they pop out, what are what's like the timer situation, like when are they active, when are they not active, are they engaged, what are they engaged with. I sort of go in, I look at that stuff a lot more than I would be like directly talking to people, because oftentimes people will just kind of tell you what they they want to hear sometimes. So I've never had a whole lot of success with the draft interview process. Obviously, Kurt has, but it just never really worked for me. So that's kind of how I've gone about it. But I think the vibes are definitely the most important part, because if you don't fit in with the rest of the clubhouse, it's honestly just gonna kind of tank the whole rest of the team. So
So,
it's hard.
so when do you interview these people? Because I promise I'll bring it back to what you look for, but I just kind of want to hear like how you guys see that too
That actually
when
is
you're
going
at.
to come up in a later question, if you don't mind.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
No, I mean it's super easy to say message count. Excuse me. It's super easy to say message count and activity, right? Like obviously that's what we all want. Um, I think it's important that you do kind of fit in with the rest of the clubhouse. Like if you're a younger person who might be a little more energetic and maybe uh, so readily available to ping, then you might fit in somewhere other than like a team with a bunch of older players who might be like parents and just they're not there for hype pings and consistently messaging like 24/7 around the clock. So just meshing your clubhouse with the type of people that you might have. And that doesn't necessarily mean like you have to be the same age range or like the same person, but being able to work together is really important. And I guess that's just in anything, right? It's not just MLR, not to get too deep, but like it doesn't have to be some fake baseball game. Just being able to work together, I guess would be my long way of saying that.
Yeah, makes sense to me. Well, since you were bringing it up, I think it's a good time to ask, how does everyone here prepare for a draft? When do you start your process? How do you find people? And generally, what do you do leading up to the draft itself? Um, I've always started my drafty process and my free agency process around the same time, which is when I get eliminated from the playoffs. Mostly because I'm superstitious and feel like if I'm working on it before then, it will jinx me and kick me out of the playoffs immediately. Generally, it's worked out because I don't usually get past the first round and have a bunch of time to just tool around with free agencies and fantasy roster building and draftees. So, what I like to do is get a message count of everyone, find positions. Well, what I used to do, not as much anymore because there's so much positional versatility, is find positions of need, focus first on those players, get message counts, try and predict who's going to be available where, hit up a group of people that I think will be available at a position I like with a good amount of activity, interview them all, get vibe sense like we were talking about, and then go from there. That's my main group, and then I'd build up around it for best player available in like the second round or third round, so on and so forth. Other than that, I look for trades to try and move my way up, with some teams usually giving away picks practically for free that you could use to package with your other picks to move up. So there's really a lot of work that goes into drafting for me because I like having success in the draft. Who wants to go next?
Brian, you
Well,
sound
actually,
anxious.
I remembered something I wanted to bring up earlier. Brian, you were talking about how I have success with the draft interviews. It's because I don't actually care about what they talk about. I just care about how they talk, basically. If they give a very boring answer, just like no life, one sentence stuff, that's not generally a person I will say, oh yeah, this is a great idea, even if they give really good answers. I like someone who's more honest and is willing to go along with my shenanigans. Okay, sorry. Fats, you were going.
Oh, I was saying if Brian wanted to go.
I guess I can go. With respect to like what I think about when I'm looking at draftees, generally my process starts as soon as FCB opens up. Honestly, like beforehand, like the process starts when the GMs get announced, so that I can be like, okay, this is what. So this person and this person are running this team. This is the general vibe they're gonna create. So I know these are the things that are gonna get be a lot more visible on the surface, and these are the things that aren't going to get seen as much based off of those two GMs. And then I just sort of keep track over the course of the FCB season of like, okay, this person fits this kind of vibe, they fit into this kind of niche, and I keep sort of like an internal spreadsheet of all of those like essentially like buckets that each player kind of fits into, and then I just sort of sort and rank players based off of their buckets. I know, very sort of interesting way to look at it, but it's how my brain works.
That's in depth. In depth. I like it. I'm glad to
So,
have you on my team.
must make it easy for you, huh?
Yes.
Um, so generally, I since this is a game, and some people want to get more involved than others, and thankfully, I've had a bunch of people who do want to be really involved. I try to actually let my scouts lead the scouting process, I guess. Um, and going over through the college baseball thing. So I will pay attention and I will look as I want to, I guess. So I'll like kind of be in there and check, and I'll talk with people occasionally, but I might not actually be hanging out in there like 24/7. And my scouts might not be either. So like if you're not seeing someone from the Cardinals messaging, we're probably working behind the scenes. We're still reading your messages and like seeing what you're sending, but we might not be like interacting just because I kind of want it to be authentic, and it's easier for me to judge on like what you're doing when you're working with people or when they're working with people and talking with people that are working towards a similar goal. So all of them in college are trying to win whatever we call the cup there. I think it's a solo cup, right?
The Red Solo Cup.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's easy to see that like they're all working towards that same goal, and that's how like I'm reading how you're interacting with your teammates in the clubhouse as opposed to you interacting with me and like forcing conversation. And not that it is forced, but that's I can get a better idea of what kind of player you're going to be in your clubhouse than in the main, because not all players are active in main and also active in their clubhouse. Usually, in my experience, I'll have more players active in the clubhouse than I will in main, which is why you might not see the Cardinals all the time when you're in main. But that's beside the point.
So would you say it's fair to say that the Cardinals are like big brother spying on draftees from on high?
Oh, 100%.
Okay,
Yeah.
interesting.
So we've got the spy cams. Like we're watching. We're like peeping through the blinds, making sure that everyone's staying afloat and acting right. Nothing crazy. If you say something crazy on a survey, we'll find out. We'll know.
Meanwhile, I will just be reacting to random posts in the drafty channels with the FBI emoji and FCB of Skipper the Penguin eating a Cheeto.
I didn't even mention surveys. I don't like surveys. I don't think they tell you anything about players. I don't know why so many teams do them. We did them this year.
You know what's funny is we didn't do one this year,
Mhm.
but I do disagree with that.
Yeah.
Because,
well, expand on that. What do you think you get from them?
Yeah, I mean, it just depends on the questions you're asking. Because a lot of teams I've seen will ask like funny questions, but you get an idea of their personality. So, like you were saying, when you're DMing somebody and they, give you a really dry response, then you like in your opinion, that's how they're going to be in your clubhouse, right?
Yeah, I'd
So
say
if
so.
so if I ask like a funny question on a survey and they give me a funny response, okay, so that gives me an idea of what their personality is. Or if they reply to my funny question with like, I don't get this, then that tells me, okay, there might be a little bit more literal than me. And so on. Or, I'll ask them, uh, you know, I'll say give an age range so nobody like feels like they have to. And I'll give an option to like not select age if they don't want to. But just to kind of get an idea of maturity, which, sometimes that has a correlation, sometimes it doesn't. I'd say most of the time it does, but
You know what? I'll say that makes sense. That's a good response.
Meanwhile, I am on the exact opposite side of the spectrum as Kurt. I very much believe in the power of surveys because for me, surveys are very helpful because you get the sort of like baseline information that sometimes won't come up in team chats. So like just having that like basic demographic data of like, okay, you're this kind of person, you like to do this, you want to get involved this way, you have XYZ hobbies, it helps to put you in more buckets. So that I can figure out, okay, you
it's
like this thing so that you can get involved in this conversation when this happens in the clubhouse and get it obviously it is very intricate process in my head.
see two with that is it's a lot easier to record. Like I don't have to go search through, if they're a really highly active person, thousands of messages to figure out, a certain thing about this person. Like if they're gonna build a database for me or not, or you know what I mean. So I can just ask them these types of questions on the survey and I don't have to dig for it. Plus, if they're taking the time to fill out the survey, at least at the time they do it, they are engaged in what's going on in the league. So that's another positive sign that you can look at.
That's a very fair and salient point by both of you. I think what I can take away from that is Brian really likes buckets. All
What
right,
kind?
that joke died.
10 gallon? 5 gallon?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
All
Uh,
the above.
this question is specifically for Fats. Because, Fats, I don't know if you know this, but you had the first overall pick 2 years in a row at one point. Can
No,
you
I didn't.
describe your thought process going into those drafts and what made you decide to pick Dayman 1 year and then just trade it next year?
Yeah, well, I mean, for that first one with Dayman and Stupio, like I was saying, we just needed activity because it wasn't a secret to anyone that clubhouse activity in St. Louis was really low at the time. So we just needed someone to like be there to create conversation and help with scouting discussions and whatever. So Damien was there to help with that, and I knew that I would have somebody consistently there to help me. And Buzz was great too. So I don't know if you guys know Buzz Carlton, but
Never.
that dude is
Oh,
secretly a monster.
Buzz
Um,
Carlton. I do know him. Mhm.
mhm. I think he was an S8 pick. Um, Ironically, not the Cardinals' first round pick. But yeah, Buzz was secretly a monster. He was probably one of the few people, and I mean few, that consistently helped before that draft. Because when I took over, we still had like 4 games left in the season, I think. So he was a really good presence, and then Dayman adding him added a lot. So then, for that year, like we had a lot of bad luck that first year with Dayman, and then the second year, when we got that first overall pick, that was we had a rough stretch of pitching, like really rough. Again, a lot of bad luck, but that's what most of this game is, anyways. So I wanted to add pitchers, and what happened in that trade was we looked at everybody that was behind us, and then that trade showed up, and the team that wanted the first overall pick, which I think was Oakland, if I'm remembering correctly.
You are?
Yeah, Oakland, and then Houston was involved in that trade too. So Oakland wanted the first overall pick, and I knew they didn't want a pitcher. Mark was pretty straight up when he talked to me about that. And then I knew that Miami probably wouldn't need a pitcher, and I'm forgetting the other team that was ahead. But
No, you were
I
fourth,
think
so that is 4.
yeah. Toronto. Toronto was the other team ahead of us. And we were fairly sure, but not entirely, so it was kind of just a gamble. But yeah, so then I knew we were going to get DVD, who we were going to pick first overall anyways. So it just worked out really well. And then we got, I think, the 13th overall pick for ATR, who I don't know if he really got his flowers for being the 13th pick. Like, he seemed like he was flying under the radar to me anyways. And I know some people are going to say, well, in hindsight, ATR just left after a year in the league. Yes, but he was a great contributor, and he left due to other things that we couldn't have seen come up. So yeah, it's tough when you lose a player that you really like after one season, and you know that they were going to be a great contributor this year, especially leaving like right before the season started. That sucks. But he was a really good pick, and I wouldn't see it any other way. But yeah, so we took 2 pitchers that year because that's what we needed to change. And we did get better. GG3, who also unfortunately left to unforeseen circumstances. He was another fabulous pick, second rounder. He easily could have been a top 15 pick, probably top 10. But yeah, he recently left, and he had I think just over a 2 ERA last season. So we got a lot better, and DVD, his ERA got better as the season went on, and just working the pitching rotation a little bit and trying to figure out what buttons work, right? Just like any other game. You start button mashing, and then you hope something works or you find a cheat code. And that's what GG3 was for a little bit. But yeah, with DVD, ATR, and all them, it just worked out, and they were all really good picks.
Yeah. Can I ask one thing about the trade?
Yeah.
Do you remember how that trade got started? Like, did you propose it? Did Oakland? Did Houston? What happened there?
I was never gonna trade it to begin with. I know I'd kind of I toyed with the idea for sure, and I kind of talked it out with everyone, and they're like, "Well, you could, but like it'd be easy to just take DVD and call it a day," which is what we did with Dayman, because we could have traded that too, and I just not gonna do that. So I thought about it, and then Mark reached out. Marker 6 on the A's reached out and just said, "Hey, you want to trade first overall pick?" And I was like, "Well, for what, first of all?" And he was like, "Well, of course the 4th pick would be in it." And then I wasn't gonna let it go for anything less than 2 first rounders for sure. And if that second first rounder was like the 30th pick, then I'm like, that's not worth it to me at the time, right? And then they worked something out with Houston, so we'd get the 4th pick and then the 13th pick. And I was like, that's pretty darn good. And then we were doing the math too and found out that we'd probably still get DVD. And we were like, yep, all right, that works for me. The real hang up was, I think, somebody from Houston is probably going to yell at me for misremembering this too. But the hang up was with them, and they wanted another second round pick or something. And I only had 2 roster spots open anyway, so I was only going to take 2 players, and I didn't even need my second pick. So I was like, yeah, take it. Because it was an early second rounder, right?
Yes, it would have
And
been 2, like 3 or 4.
yeah. Yeah, so I was like, yeah, you can have it. Works for us.
Mm-hmm.
So, no, it really came together well. And I was also traveling that day. Okay, I'm going to shout out our moderators and LOMs, as I call them. They
How
always
dare you?
manage to be,
This
yeah,
podcast is on the record as hating all LOMs and mods, including Lars Newtbar.
yeah, God. I mean, come on now. You guys always pick draft day to be when I'm traveling.
Yeah,
And
how
it
dare
does
they?
not fail. I know.
Mhm.
And then the draft that we picked Damien, I was actually at work. So I barely could pay attention. All 3 of my drafts, I've barely been able to pay attention. And the last one, I had to have DVD and salsa come through for me because I was on the road, couldn't do anything. It's driving me nuts, man. Come on, let's be better here. Let's dictate when the draft is around me and not when all of the other GMs need it. Okay?
Yeah, I
Thank
mean,
you.
you have had the
That's my
number 1
soapbox.
pick 2 out of your 3 years as GM, so
Thank you for reminding me.
no problem. I'm now remembering that we actually had pretty extensive talks about trade in your first season as GM, like me trying to get that number 1 pick.
Yeah. Now that you say that, I do. But yeah, I was. Unless it was a really good trade, I wasn't going to trade it.
Yeah, I didn't want to give up too much because I never do.
Yeah.
Anyway, anything more anyone has to say about this? Well, anything more you have to say about this?
I think I just stood on a soapbox and started shouting at everybody
No, it
for
was
no
perfect.
reason. So,
Mhm.
I mean, you guys.
Recording a podcast, I mean, shouting on the box is kind of the whole deal. So
Mhm.
you're
Yeah,
doing great.
you're right. Well, now that you say that, no, I'm just kidding.
No. All right. The last question I have before we go to my favorite segment of the podcast will be, what's one piece of advice you would give to rookie GMs going into their first draft? And
Oh.
you'd think I prepare for these questions that I write, but I didn't ever think of a good answer for this one.
I'll go first. Don't auto.
Please do.
Don't auto. Just
Yes.
check conditional subs. Honestly, it's really here's the correct answer to, and probably a good bullet point for don't auto. Just lean on your captains. Like, they're captains for a reason. You trust them to be in that spot. So if you're going to be out for the night, or if you don't, if you communicate with them before you don't know that you're not going to be on, that, hey, if I don't check, can you check for me? And then just kind of go from there, like having that understanding with your people.
Great answer, and I've actually now thought of my own. Piggybacking a bit off of yours, I would relying on captains, very important. You cannot GM by yourself. It's very hard to do. But I think also most importantly, don't get hung up on one player, because there's a very real chance, unless you have pick one, you're not going to get that player. You need to have backup plans on top of backup plans, and you cannot let them know that they're your backup plans. Brian. Live on stream, Brian.
Why are you pointing it out? I told that story willingly, like
Because it's
5 minutes
funny.
ago.
Because it's a funny story.
Yep, Brian.
Yeah, come on, Brian.
Brian.
All right, Brian. Go ahead and answer the question, Brian.
Yeah, Brian. What do
will.
you got to say, Brian?
I actually have my
Okay.
point of advice
Oh,
when it
okay,
comes to
cool.
drafting
Anyway,
for rookie GMs uh is that don't get so hung up on the flashy stuff, the activity, the scouting sheets. All of that is fine and good. But if you don't find the right fit for the people in your clubhouse, then nothing's going to come of it. The scout If you don't get the right culture fit, the people aren't going to buy into scouting, so it doesn't matter how many fancy toys you have if there's not universal buy-in. It doesn't matter how active a draftee is if they don't fit into your clubhouse. They're not going to talk anyway. They're just going to spend the whole season in Maine and then leave. So, team fit, team fit, team fit. It's easy to get stuffed into the flashy stuff, and it's obviously very important stuff, but you can't ignore how well someone fits in your club.
Yeah. Very salient point. One more thing I should mention really quickly. Don't draft the meme player. There's one every year that everyone's like, oh, you gotta draft this guy. He's awful in the clubhouse, but you should draft him. It would be really funny. Don't do it. It never works.
name a meme player.
Wheezy Wigglesworth or whatever from this year. Prison Mike. I don't know anymore off the top of my head.
Fair enough.
Brian Taylor.
Fuck off.
Okay.
Whoa,
Me.
it's family podcast.
No, it's
That's
not.
incorrect. Yeah. I'm actually just gonna bleep out everything Brian said this entire episode, just to be safe.
It's just gonna sound like an emergency broadcast.
Exactly.
There
That's all
was
the
actually an ambulance at my house right before we recorded, so that is very funny.
That's true. That's all the questions I had. Did either of you have any that you wanted to ask about drafting in general?
So I'm gonna go back to this
Okay.
because I don't necessarily think that that we talked about this. We kind of did. We danced around it. So when do you reach out to college players? Like, at what point are you talking to them and doing your individual messaging?
Like I said, it's kind of like immediately when I start with the whole drafting process. My
Okay,
like
so
when I get
like as
eliminated from
soon
the
as they're
playoffs.
loading in, like,
No, when I get eliminated from the playoffs.
okay, I guess sometimes I feel like the timelines don't match up every year. So like,
They
um,
don't.
yeah, but so here's I guess I'll bring you behind the curtain a little bit here. Um, I don't reach out until like the week before at the earliest,
That's probably
and
smart. Yeah.
yeah, so that's just because I like I know what player I'm going to draft because there's going to be guys that are going to change. Like, their interest levels may drop, or they might just end up leaving altogether. So I'm not going to waste my time DMing this guy who's not going to be there by session 3 or 4, right? So just waiting, like, when the draft is announced and everyone's excited for it and all that, then I'll reach out to them. And this this is something kind of crazy too. I don't message very many people. Like, it might be at most 10. And then during the draft, like, as everything's progressing, like, beforehand, I'll DM you. And if you DM me back, that's brownie points because, it's such short notice and you're paying attention. So that means a lot to me. Um, like, for example, that really worked out well with GG3. He was one of like 3 or 4 people I was DMing at the time. And I was like, hey, our pick's like in 5 picks your way or something. So we've got about an hour or whatever it was. Um, and he was like, yeah, it's really cool. And he was just responding and like saying, yeah, this is what I'm about. And, if you'll have me, that'd be great. And then it's like, yeah, I like you. I'm gonna go ahead and take you. And it worked out super well. So that's just
Yeah.
kind of what we do, and that's bringing you behind the wall a little bit here and kind of giving you
I
an
won't
inside
say
look.
I never do that, especially if I have room in the later rounds. That's generally what I do. Reach out to a few players still available, see what the vibes are like real quick.
Yeah, just unless we're drafting first overall, like, because then it's really easy for us to be like, yeah, we know we can get who we want, right? But if we're picking later in the draft, like this year or with our second rounders or whatever, then that's something we'll do.
Makes sense
Kind
to
of did
me.
that. I mean, ATR was like pick 13, and we kind of did that with him. We had an idea, like we knew the short list, but yeah. Anyways,
All right. Any more questions, Brian? Anything?
I do actually have a question for you, Fat. Unfortunately, both me and Kurt are what people would call old farts, in the sense of like being in MLR for a while. Obviously, there are people that are more of an old fart than I am, but
Can I
nevertheless,
interject
I'm
real
still gonna
quick?
call myself. Can
You're
I?
closer
Can I?
to Fats joining the league than you are me joining the league, Brian.
I joined in season 5.
I joined at season 2.
the math checks
Fair.
out.
Nevertheless, my point was that both me and Kurt have been in front offices for a while,
That is true.
so we are pretty separated from like the first memory of like trying to do a draft where Fast your first draft was just a couple seasons ago, so it's a little fresher in your mind. We did have that question at the end of the pre-planned questions where we talked about what advice we would give a rookie GM. The question I'm going to pose to you is that what did you learn as a result of your first draft? Like, what was the main takeaway you had after that first draft?
Well, my main takeaway was I hope all these drafts are as easy as this one. But then again, I was like, well, I hope it's not, because then we're picking first again, which we ended up doing, and it was pretty easy, especially after that trade, which culminated pretty late in the cycle, I guess. But yeah, that was my main thing. Is like, this was actually pretty easy, and I think I feel like this is pretty common opinion. I don't know, but I think the off season is probably some of the most fun that you can actually have in MLR, especially
As
being
a
in the front office.
as a GM, sure. As a player, it's incredibly boring.
I, I don't know. Like, I still think that you can be engaged. Like, if you go over to college, I think that can be kind of fun, because then you can go dome with them, and we all know that they love the dome. I don't know what it is, but the new people love it. But like, you can be engaged that way. Like I said, one of my key philosophies for running my team is it is a game. So I want you to have the most fun that you can have. And if you want to be engaged in it somehow, I'm going to make that happen. So, like, if you want to be a captain and we don't have a captain spot, I can probably get you onto awards, or I can put you in a committee if you're really passionate about the rules and stuff. Or I'll make you a scout, and or I'll start vouching for you to be a college GM, or just things like that. Like, I want you to be involved if you want to be involved, so I'm going to help you do that, or I'll at least tell you how you can do that. I might not be able to make it happen, but if you want to do something within the game, then we can talk about it, and I'll try to direct you to the right people. And I certainly don't know everything that goes into this. Obviously, I pay attention, but I don't pay that close attention. So if I miss something and I start bothering Tomas or Damien or Stupido or any number of people, then so be it. But yeah.
Is it weird reaching out to Dayman about things after he left your team?
No. And I still like him, and we're on
Yeah.
we're on an MLN team together. Not to bring that up, but yeah, no. I mean, I'm not gonna stop you if you want to leave. Like, dude, it's your game.
Yeah,
Like,
you're not going to
I,
hold them down and force them to stick with your team. What are you doing?
I know. I know. Like, I keep saying this, and I sound like a broken record now. I'm all scratched up, but like, it's a game, and I want you to have as most fun as you can. So if you have an idea and you want to do something, or if you want to leave, like, obviously, like, I don't want to just let you go for nothing, especially when you are a player at Damian's caliber and as active as you are. Like, yeah, I would rather trade you, but
Well, you
if
should
you
have
don't
taken
want to
my
be
trade.
a if you don't want to be a Cardinal, I'm not going to make you be one. And if you want to be a Cardinal, then yeah, we can have a conversation about it during the right times. Um, but yeah, it's a game, so I want you to have fun, and I want you to play it the way that you want to play it.
All right. Bold take. You want people to have fun? Interesting.
In MLR,
Yeah. Not really what we do here, I'll be honest.
hashtag not my
Unlike
league.
Kurt, who deliberately goes out of his way to make sure I am having the least amount of fun as possible.
Yeah, it's accurate.
Well,
That's why
Brian,
I
that's
gave up those
actually
2 runs. Not because I'm bad.
that's specific to you. Like, if you were a Cardinal, I'd probably do that too.
Man,
Yeah,
All
tough sledding,
right.
but
All
you'll
right.
get
Anything
there.
else?
it's because I'm a
You'll
Gator
get
fan,
there one
isn't
day,
it?
champ. Yes,
Well, I mean, that's just a
could be
bad
worse.
idea from you. I mean, I don't know what you're doing.
Yeah. Hey, it's okay. Jordan Crooks and that Leando guy just tied for an SEC swimming championship. So
How do you know that?
I'm very in tune with collegiate
SEC
athletics,
swimming?
and yeah, man, dude,
Okay.
I big sports guy over here. I will watch just about anything that's competitive. I am so down horrendous when it comes to any athletic competition. Like the USA Canada game, as heartbreaking as it was such a great game in general. Like
We
I
were
was
live
so
talk. We were talking about that in the Braves clubhouse.
yeah, like I haven't watched but maybe like 20 minutes of NHL hockey this season. And I like hockey. I'm already a hockey fan, so I'm not gonna say like, oh yeah, this game really brought me to like hockey. No, like the 2010 Olympics was when I was sucked into hockey. And that was darn near as heartbreaking as what that was. But it was a great game, and I just loved the competition that it brought. And then, like,
You know, I don't like hockey, and I still liked that game.
it's amazing. It's
hmm
like the as competitive as those guys are, like they don't have to be doing this in the middle of an NHL season, and risking their $1 million paychecks for that. Well, I don't know what the contract breakdown is, but like if they get hurt, that's
20
going to set
bucks.
them back. Yeah, give or take.
hmm
Um, but like stuff like that, and then like yeah, that like being a fan of college athletics can right now is kind of challenging just because of the NIL stuff, the transfer portal. There's no consistency, but like a lot of these NCAA athletes in the Olympic sports are going to be in the Olympics. Like Jordan Crooks is breaking records for Tennessee swim right now. Like he's going to be an Olympian. It's just a matter of when.
The
Yeah,
Cayman
it's
Islands.
say what?
For the Cayman Islands. Good for him.
Yeah. Um, yeah, so just seeing stuff like that, and I don't necessarily follow it. I'll just see it, right? Like pop up, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. And the SEC swim championship is right now, so that stuff's just been popping up on my feeds. But that kind of stuff, um, college baseball is coming around right now, which is really kind of scratching my baseball itch because spring training doesn't really do it for me.
You know, I'm
Um,
not a big college baseball guy, but I'm really happy Texas got that coach from A&M because it's really funny. And
Well,
and I wish
college
nothing
baseball's,
but bad things for A&M.
college baseball's
yeah,
cool.
Homer.
College softball college softball, especially the SEC, is going to be absolute Thunderdome, and I will be locked the hell in.
Do you follow college baseball,
Who is that aimed to? Me? No.
Brian?
I barely follow
Brian.
regular baseball.
I
Fair.
follow it a little bit, not nearly as much as softball. I'm locked into softball, but I will follow. I will keep up with baseball a little bit.
College baseball and the SEC is I would say it's just behind college softball, SEC college softball. Like it is not far behind. I think the past couple years, the finals have been all SEC teams. I could be wrong. I know
Who's going to win it
half of
this year?
Omaha last year was SEC teams, and it was Tennessee and Texas A&M. And I think the last 4 champions in college baseball have been all SEC teams, and they've been different SEC teams, which is the
I've got it.
difference for me between college baseball and college softball. Like,
I've got it right here, and you're actually incorrect. The last 5 champions were SEC teams, and they were all different. So,
which is amazing.
Mhm.
And that sets college softball behind for me because I'm tired of watching Oklahoma win it. And
softball, yeah.
yeah, like when James Madison beat them a few years ago, that was electric. But, obviously Oklahoma still won the championship. And that just kind of takes away from the magic a little bit for me. But it's still really cool.
I mean, Oklahoma's kind of going through a bit of a transition year right now. They just lost the last bit of their championship core. I mean, obviously they're still going to be great, but they've taken a little bit of a step back, and I think that we're going to see a little bit more parity this year.
Well, and
Not
they've got an
across
SEC
conferences.
schedule.
All the parity is within the SEC, but
Yeah.
They won 8-0 for their first game and run-ruled Tulsa.
that's just how the preseason tournaments go. That's just normal for a team of Oklahoma's caliber. That just happens.
Are you saying
Well,
Tulsa's not a great softball team?
They're a good softball team, but
I mean,
it's still Oklahoma.
let me see, because college baseball is so funny. Like LSU, I mean, they just won a championship a couple of years ago. They just lost to Omaha yesterday.
UNO is terrible. I don't even know anything about their baseball team. I just mean their school.
Well, I think they're getting better as a baseball program. Like they're getting close. Oh yeah, they lost 12-1 today, by the way.
Ugh.
Arkansas just lost to Kansas State in baseball. Kansas State, I think, is a little better, right? But Arkansas is a top 10 team, and Kansas State isn't ranked. I saw a hilarious score too pop up where I'm not joking. The final score was 33-12 today.
Interesting. What about the run rules?
So teams actually have to agree to that before the series starts or before the game starts. So, Tennessee, the problem that they have right now is Tony Vitello actually hates the run rule because, you're losing innings. Like, your pitchers aren't getting work in. So, some young guys who might see some time against these low major teams aren't getting that work. And so they try their best not to have that happen. But if the other team doesn't agree to it, then, you're SOL and, you lose those couple innings and you win 20-5 or whatever it is. Here's an example. This is the bottom of the 6th when the score was posted here. I'm looking at a tweet. Florida Atlantic was beating Connecticut 19-15. Here is the 33 score. As of the top of the 9th, Maryland was beating Western Carolina 33-10.
Who won?
Maryland.
Weird.
It's like a football score.
Yeah. I hate to do this. I really do, but I feel like we're gonna have to move on.
Yeah, I think we're pushing the limits of the amount of real collegiate athletics discourse we can have in a fake baseball podcast.
Yes.
Well, I mean, I'm a big fan of fake college baseball. I love the draft time, and um, if you're listening to this and you're a GM next season, I'm rooting for you to carry on the Tennessee Volunteers legacy because that was the first team, or I had the first Volunteers team, and then Cats of Trash had the second one. I got teased this season. I can't remember which GM it was that had the balls and then changed it up on me, which was heartbreaking. But I'd love to see the legacy carried on because, who doesn't want to support a national champion IRL?
I
One of
don't.
these days, Lom is gonna let me run the Florida Gators, and then we're gonna win a paper cup. Or
No, they're not, Brian.
Yeah,
yes, they
Brian.
will. Eventually, I will hold out hope that one day Lom will give me an FCB team.
We
Or if they're not gonna let you or
And then the Red Solo
um
Cup will belong to the fake Florida Gators.
I think that, okay, here's a
A
proposal to
beacon dream.
Lom when they listen to this. I think next season they should make everyone be a MAC team because I was really liking the MACtion going on this season. So
let's go
we'll bring
CMU versus Western Kentucky for the national championship.
sign me up. I'm there.
Mhm.
Fire up chips. Go Hilltoppers. Yeah, like go Broncos. Give me the Akron Zips, the Toledo Rockets. I want it all. You know what? I'll even throw UMass in there. Why not?
They're not Mac.
They're going to be.
Oh, okay. To
Yeah.
conclude this section about the draft, it's hard. Don't do it unless you want to.
Make a
Brian,
smart
you want to
pick.
go ahead and give us the flash forwards and flash currently because we're currently in the middle of this game.
All right, let's.
He's dead. Oh no.
The reason why we brought on our good pal Fats is because we just so happen to be playing the Cardinals this week. So let's
Oh,
actually
that's
talk
going
about
on?
the game. Yeah, I know. It's a weird thing. We happen to be playing.
No, I'm okay.
Um, but yeah. Any thoughts coming into this matchup, Fats?
Just a bunch of blank stares. No, I mean, um, I think I don't know. I haven't seen the updated one, but as of like last season or whenever I saw this, the Cardinals have their best record against the Braves, actually.
Mm,
Um,
I don't like
so
that
that's
stat.
yeah, it's a cool stat, but I don't know how accurate it is anymore because I think it's an old stat. Um, and then we went through the troubles, so I
The
like
troubles.
yeah, the dark ages, the
This is
back to back first overall, as you guys have been so kind to remind me multiple times of.
well, we're kind people.
Yeah, very kind. I appreciate that.
Mhm.
It's a great courtesy that you do for me.
Yeah, no problem.
We do our
Appreciate
best.
you.
We want to make you
Of
feel
course.
comfortable.
I'm very comfortable, actually. Yeah, even down 1-0 as of where this podcast being recorded. So, yeah, I'm very cozy right now.
Yeah, it's been a very interesting game so far. Uh, still early on, but I'm feeling all right about it.
Well, okay, let me do this here. You don't have to answer this. I want your philosophy on staking and stealing.
On what? Oh,
On
stealing.
steals.
Yeah.
Yeah, staking. We call it stakes. Shout out
It's
DDs
hard
in
to
Miami.
answer that because if you had asked me that when I had just started, I would have said steal every time. And if you ask me now, I would say steal every time, but I'm not as vocal about it, so we don't do it as much.
I mean,
Yeah.
my steal philosophy usually rounds up to like, how do we feel about that particular at bat? Because if, let's say, I'm not feeling super comfortable about a read, then I'll be like, all right, let's go for a steal. Because like, if we're trying to steal second, then that's a real significantly bigger range than just trying to get a hit. But if I think we have a really good shot to get a good bat on the ball here, then I'm not going to want to take the bat out of the hitter's hands, because then we could get multiple bases instead of getting one base out of a pitch. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, I like stealing, but I'm not gonna steal just to steal, right? Like in this game, I think it was the very first batter we went ahead and stole, like AB number one of the game. Go ahead and just steal. But you've
It
got,
worked out for you.
I mean, not really. We didn't score, but
Oh, you got the steal. It would have probably
yeah,
been an out.
the steal worked. Yeah, I
Mhm.
think it was like a 190 diff, so
Mhm.
probably. But yeah, that's like at that point, yeah, it's kind of fun, and it's just something fun to do because we kind of play around with it, and we'll call it staking and uh, make jokes of it, and just kind of have a good time. So it's like adding an element for us. Um, and if you're Montreal, you're like the no fun league and can't stake, can't leave your base. We're going station to station, dingers or nothing.
This is a strong opinion you have against Montreal. Where did that come from?
No, I'm just teasing.
Mhm.
I just know they don't like to steal, so I got to pick on them a
Gotcha.
little bit.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's certainly not being drafted to Miami or anything. I know that's what you're looking for, right?
Oh no.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I've
anyway,
shouted them out
1-0
a
right
few
now
times.
because of a sac fly by the great Bambi, the greatest of all Bambis here in the fake baseball.
Correct.
Mhm.
Because there's, a good Bambi, but you have a great Bambi.
Yeah, it's the great Bambi.
Like, oh yeah, well we have a Hulk.
That's a good point. How do you feel about your pitcher's performance so far?
Well, Thick's doing a good job. I mean, it's kind of hard to gauge just because he has literally 0 data points. So good
I
luck
mean,
to
I'll
you
say
guys, I guess.
this. I got an accurate read on Thickmans, and when I'm getting an accurate reads on pitchers, that's never a good thing.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm
Mhm.
I'm letting him rock because like I said, our pitching staff kind of took an unexpected hit before the season started. So
Yeah.
I'm just kind of vibing out. We let DVD go for the entire game against the Phillies last time. Started out rough, but then he kind of settled in, and we just didn't score anything. So
I know
that's
how
gonna
that
happen.
feels.
Yeah, but no, we'll work out the pitching. We have a couple of games to play with before we get like too nervous, right? So
Yeah, fair
just
enough.
kind of seeing where we're at, and then go from there.
Still a lot of game left to be played. Does anyone want to give predictions?
No.
No.
All right. Well, very
very
entertaining
very
content,
bold of
guys.
us. Yeah, good content. GG's. Yeah. No, I mean, I couldn't predict this game at all because if I could predict this game at all, we'd probably have a million runs right now, right?
Well, that was going to be my joke. I was going to predict Atlanta 1,000,000, St. Louis 0. So
Oh,
I'm also just gonna draw the line in the sand. I am not going to do predictions for this podcast. Full
okay.
stop.
well, that's
Because
pretty
I
boring,
don't want to
huh?
jinx
Yeah.
I
anything.
guess I'm never gonna listen again.
Yeah, this is going to be a very interesting segment every week where nobody predicts anything.
I guess Penny's just gonna talk to himself the whole time.
Hmm. I think that both teams are gonna get someone on base at some point during the game.
You sly dog, you got me monologuing.
Mhm. Okay, well, no predictions. I didn't have anything else planned. Guess it's time to
we've
leave.
we've hit the point where I just get to start quoting movies, right?
Yeah,
We've talked
that
about
was every point in this podcast.
we've talked about SEC baseball, softball, swim. I bet you didn't have SEC swim on your bingo card.
I didn't,
Hey,
and
add that to
my
your
bingo
Cinco.
card just stays on track. I mean,
And
what a
that
failure
bingo
this.
card is empty.
Yeah.
Oh well, I'm sorry I couldn't help you there. Do you want me to fill in your free space?
Well, that was my free space.
Ouch. Well, let's see here. Let's start checking off things before we leave here. So, for those of you interested, I called out B9, which was drafting Dayman. That also came with 017, which was losing Dayman. I'm pretty sure both of those came up.
I don't think you know how bingo numbers work.
And then let's see, N35.
Why is N higher than O?
Well, because I can make it that way because this is a podcast and nobody can see my bingo card.
This is a weird bingo.
Yeah, no. Hey, just let it happen, man. Come on. And then also mentioning losing two key players that came up. Brian talking about buckets that was in G5 in case you guys needed
I got a
that
Yahtzee. I got a Yahtzee, everyone.
Oh, thank gosh. Okay, I guess we can end now, right?
Okay. I don't know if we're gonna keep going after this because this might be the worst idea I've ever had. So say bye just in case, everyone. Bye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
If you're still listening, that means this outro was a success. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to give you each exactly 5 seconds, and I will cut you off to say whatever you want to say. And that's how we're going to end this podcast. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
All right. I'll give you 3, 2, 1, Brian. Ready?
All right.
3, 2, 1, go.
Shout out to David Ayers. Today is the 5-year anniversary of the Leafs blowing a lead to the 42-year-old Zamboni Viper.
Stop. Nothing. You can't say anything more. That's all you get to say. Fats, it's your turn. Are you ready?
Go. Chirp, chirp. The end.
Great job. And you're cut off. Okay, now it's time for me to wrap it up. 3, 2, 1. We will catch you next week when we have the Mets on and hopefully somebody like Robbie Tight Pants and also I'm out of time. Bye.
Bye.